In this video, I'm going to give you the truth about buying a bass in 2020. Hey guys, I'm Tyler and welcome back to the channel. If you are new around here, don't forget to consider hitting that like button, that subscribe button and that notification bell to keep up to date with the latest of my videos. In this video I wanted to talk about what I think is kind of the truth about buying a bass in 2020. Sat around at the minute, lots of time to think, like quite a lot of you in lockdown over here in the UK. So lots of time to think, and lots of you guys are watching videos and loads of comments coming in on videos. And I recently did a video of this bass, which is the Squier Classic Vibe 70s Precision. And while it's kind of still in my hands and not been taken back to the shop yet, I was just kind of having a play and a little bit of a think. And one of the comments that I got on the review video for this bass was regarding the quality. So I'll put that comment on the screen now. Beautiful review. Does it really sound great? Would you recommend it despite the price range as good as a good bass to play on stage? I was just evaluating the purchase, also to use it in my channel videos. And that kind of got me thinking about the idea of basses in 2020. What's it like buying a bass in 2020? What's it like buying a cheap bass in 2020, an expensive bass? Just the whole concept and what is it really like? What's the landscape like? I think there's a bit of a hangover from the days of the past. I know my dad always talks about basses in the 60s, well not the 60s, but the 70s and 80s, and guitars, he's a guitar player, not being great. If you bought a cheap guitar, or even some of the expensive guitars, they weren't very well made, well built, and the whole process of guitar building, manufacturing just wasn't really all that together, and you could really end up with some dogs if you didn't spend some good money on your instrument. And I think that's really kind of not the case anymore. I think that you can really get away with having something like a Squier or Sire are really well regarded. Those brands that are renowned for being in the cheaper part of the market, I still think you can get a great instrument for that price. And really, the truth is, in 2020, you don't have to worry about what you're buying. I don't think there's anything that is horrifically manufactured. I've never gone down to things like the kind of Harley Bentons or those kind of £100 instruments. But I have kind of had some charity shop basses come through my hands where people wanted them set up or things like that. And I've set them up, and they've absolutely been pretty much fine. Once you give them a setup and new strings and things like that, they're perfectly usable. They might be a bit buzzy in the electronics, but these are kind of older charity shop instruments. If you're going out there and buying a new bass today from a shop, I think it's very unlikely you're going to find anything that isn't going to be at least playable, even if it takes a little bit of work. Now, I don't really want you to get me wrong here. There is definitely a difference between a quality instrument, a really high quality instrument, and something like a Squier. They are not the same, but I think our general standards of fit and finish are a lot higher than was previously permitted, and people would, guitar shops could get away with them being not so great in the past, whereas nowadays the standards are a lot higher. I also think the fact that a lot of these basses are manufactured using a lot of CNC machines. There's not so much hand building as much on a cheaper instrument. There's a lot of kind of stock building and putting things together, and I think that makes it possible to have a much more consistent instrument. Just playing through this Squier, just going to give a little play, and then I've got my custom shop bass as well, which is another Precision. I'm going to play that too, and then just trying to give you kind of my feedback on the difference between the two, and why I would want to spend more money on one than the other. So this is kind of just a little bit of an idea of what the Squier can sound like. Perfectly good sounding P bass. I'm just going to switch over to the custom shop. So now I'm just going to play a similar type of thing on the custom shop bass. So what is the difference between the two, and what do you need to look out for? Well, really, kind of both of them do a very similar thing. They're differently built, the materials are different. The custom shop's certainly got a higher quality range of woods. The Squire's got a cheaper wood in that it uses a NATO body. It's not such an expensive wood choice. The maple is just an ordinary kind of piece of maple, whereas the neck on the custom shop is quarter sawn. And the specs are different, but I mean they're both gonna really do the job on the gig. That's the one thing I think about the instruments in 2020. If you're buying at the cheaper end, you're really not gonna have a problem. You can get by on any gig with a Squier. If I'm honest, it might not feel the best to you as a player, particularly if you're a more advanced player. You start to notice the feel of the instrument a lot more. But I could get by with a Squier no problem. And I wouldn't be upset to have been given a Squier if I was in need. If bass got lost on a flight and I had to just play a gig on a Squier, I'd be totally fine. Could totally do it. The instrument isn't going to prevent you from being able to play. And if you get it set up, or you know how to set up, and you can tweak it yourself, and you know what you like, again, a Squier isn't going to be a problem. And you're going to be good with the Squier on a gig. You're going to be good to practice with the Squier. It's going to do whatever you need. The same goes for the cheaper end of Cort, the same cheap Ibanez. Warwick rock basses are quite expensive really, so I don't really count them in the same league. They're kind of a more expensive bass, but I mean the very cheapest ones of those kind of compete with Squier as well. All these kind of cheap brands, or cheap ends of brands, you're going to be absolutely fine. So if you're buying a bass in 2020 and you haven't bought a bass before, I think you can be fairly confident that whatever you do buy is going to be solid, and not a problem. And I think one of the best things about these basses is that they are now pretty well manufactured, and I think you can get a lot longer lifespan out of, say, your first bass. If your bass was even the cheaper Squiers than this, you could replace the pickups, you could change the hardware, you could change the bridge, change the tuners, and those kind of things are going to give you more longevity out of owning that one bass. And you no longer really kind of back in the past, people would have their first instrument, sell it on, get a new one, because there's no way that their old instrument could be as good as that new bass that they're going for. But nowadays you can upgrade something like this Squier and make it a better bass. The fact that they are so well manufactured, in terms of they're CNC routed, it means that the specification and detail it's not far off a custom shop type instrument. As in the neck fits in the pocket and there's not odd bits about it. There's not kind of rough edges or dodgy bits. However, while that kind of sounds like I'm saying that you may as well just stick with a Squier or something like that, that's not really what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you have a Squier, I see in my channel loads of people that, some people that say like, oh no way a Squier can be any good. And a Squier can totally be good. At the same time, I see people just saying, oh, the Squier is so good, why would I bother getting something better? If you are looking to get something in the mid-tier or the upper tier of basses, there are definite reasons to do so. Out of my basses, I've got a Fender Custom Shop, two Sadowskis, a Warwick Custom Shop, an MTD, a USA MTD, and then a Sandberg. So, I'm not saying by any means that a Squier is all you need, and that's the be all and end all. But I think you can get by with a Squier. So why am I playing basses that are much better, more expensive than that? Because it's all about the feel. As you kind of develop as a player and get more used to what you want from a bass, you kind of start to develop these ideas of feeling the neck, what kind of pickups you like, what kind of body would you like. You could start to see trends. For me, it's kind of alder bodies. I love maple necks. I'm kind of quite traditional. Alder bodies, maple necks, and then the fingerboard kind of varies on what I want that bass to do. Down the middle, I kind of like Pal Ferro. Pal Ferro is kind of quite warm, but it has a good treble content as well and snap. So if you want to slap on it, or have that real definition in the top end. It's there. But this is a rosewood necked bass. Then I've got a purple heart on my MTD, ebony on my Warwick, Pal Ferro on the two Sadowskis, and then ebony on the fretless Sandberg as well. The feel you get with an expensive, well-built instrument is just going to be much better than something like a Squier. And the tone, as a result, the woods are better. For me, the bass is still an acoustic instrument, so you're going to have a better sound by having a more expensive bass. The reason a bass is more expensive is someone spent more time, more personal time and labour has gone into that instrument. The quality of the woods are better, so the wood choice between a Squier and then a Mexican built Fender, the Mexican Fender is going to have a higher class of wood that they use and import to build those basses. Then the USA Fenders, it's going to be the same thing. They're going to get, say the Mexican's like a C grade piece of wood, the Made in America Fender is going to have B grade woods for the body and the neck and the fretboard. And then once you get into custom shop, they're choosing A, AAA, 5A quality pieces of wood depending on how much money you're going to spend. And while those woods do look better, I think quite often they've also had time to dry. They've been really hand selected, carefully selected certain parts of the tree. And that's what you're getting, and you really feel that in the instrument, the quality and the tone that it delivers at the end of it. In the context of an overall band mix, often, the Squier is going to be absolutely fine, and if you're in the audience, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. But really, it's about you as a player, how you feel about expressing yourself on the instrument, and what you think is right and feels great to you. It's not going to be the same for everybody. I like really big necks in general on P basses. This custom shop has a pretty thick neck compared to the Squier. The Squier's got a little neck, which makes it very easily accessible for younger players or players that are just starting out, and kind of has a mass market appeal. But for me, I'd rather have something with a bigger neck that I know can produce the tone that I want to hear. So ultimately, if you're buying a bass in 2020, I don't really think you can go wrong. Even if you're buying at the very cheapest end, you're going to find something that's playable. If you're buying something kind of under $300, under $400, £400, sadly they're pretty much the same nowadays with the exchange rate. If you're doing that, get it set up. Make sure you take it to someone that can get it set up for you. If you're getting it set up, don't just get it set up at a guitar shop. They're not always the most qualified people to do it. I've seen terrible setups, even restrings that have been done really badly by people that work at guitar stores. Just because they work at a guitar store doesn't mean that they necessarily know what they're doing. They just can sell an instrument and give it to the person and tell them enough about it. Definitely if it's kind of a small family run shop like the Guitar Centre that I do the reviews for in the UK, definitely they're kind of a smaller business that don't employ tons of people. The people that they do employ know what they're doing, and if it's if you've got the choice, find someone that actually specialises in guitar setups, bass setups, and take your instruments to them and kind of let them know what you want. If you're buying between 400 to 700, 800, up to the 1,000 mark, normally the setup's going to be okay, but again you might want to consider getting it done. And if you're over the $1,000 mark, generally they're going to be set up pretty well. They've taken a bit more time to set it up when they were in the factory, and that's part of the price that you're paying for. Outside of that, just don't really worry about necessarily the price. Just really know what you're feeling as a player. Obviously keep your budget in mind, but just focus on what you want to feel as a player, and also kind of play loads of things, play as many things as you can get your hands on, and really register what's working for you and what's not working for you. And eventually you're going to start to come up with a list of things that really works for you and you really like, and it's going to make choosing an instrument that suits you further down the line really easy. So overall, those are my thoughts on buying a bass in 2020. If you are out there looking for something, just kind of keep that stuff in mind, but don't worry about the price so much. If you are buying in that lower end, you're going to get a higher quality instrument the more you spend, but don't worry so much about that cheaper stuff, because it's nowhere near as bad as the instruments that we used to have, and they're actually really solid, very usable instruments that will see you through gigs, all the practice and all the development you need to do. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, because that helps it get out and really helps the channel, and hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you want to see more content like this. Let me know what you think about this camera angle with all the virus and stuff. I've just been trying some different lighting and different positions, mostly for webcam stuff and live streams. But yeah, let me know what you think about this. And also don't forget to follow me over on Instagram at Tyler Spicer Music, if you want to keep up to date with kind of all the other things I do outside of just the stuff on the channel. It's all bass related content, there's nothing else that goes on there really, so check that out as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around soon.